Well, the Dems are going very hard on this no-fly list idea, and so I'm going to today reiterate my prediction from, I can't remember the first time I said it, but I'm pretty sure I mentioned it yesterday too, about the return of no-fly, no-buy. This was a law that the Dems brought up a few years back. It was a gun control thing, and it was saying, well, if somebody's not on the no-fly list, I mean, isn't it obvious that they shouldn't be able to buy a gun either? Of course, back then they were talking about, Muslim terrorists and things who were on the no-fly list. That's why we have the no-fly list, because of 9/11. Well, oh my gosh, if we're worried about this guy being a terrorist, we don't want him getting on a plane and hijacking it and flying it into the Empire State Building or the Sears Tower. And so back then, the Democrats were trying to push this as, one of the acceptable forms of gun control that maybe they could get Republicans on board for. And even back then, thankfully, there was so much resentment and disdain for gun control that they couldn't pass it back then. And people even were worried about that, the lack of due process when it comes to the no-fly list. You can be put on the no-fly list without being told so, without any justification, just because some bureaucrat thinks you should be on the no-fly list, and you have no recourse. You have no way of getting off the no-fly list. You're on the no-fly list until the federal government decides that you shouldn't be on it anymore. And so thankfully that scared enough people back then into not doing that. But now, considering that they are being so, they're going so hard against the opposition with Trump, soon to be out of office, they are calling for Trump supporters to be put on the no-fly list. At first, they're starting with just the people who stepped inside the Capitol. They're saying, hey, this group of people, we have them all on camera, every single one of them should be on the no-fly list. And that's Chuck Schumer's thing that he came out today. So this is the moderate position now. But of course, that's just to get their foot in the door. If the precedent becomes that political dissidents are terrorists and should be put on the no-fly list, the House is already talking about, the House Homeland Security Chairman is talking about putting Cruz and Hawley on the no-fly list. Straightforward from there, it'll be any Trump supporter who showed up to the rally in D.C. And didn't go inside the Capitol, but was one of the thousands, tens of thousands of people, or hundreds of thousands. I have no idea how many they actually showed up. All those people, they should be on the no-fly list. And then very easily from there, it goes to anyone who says something problematic on Facebook, if they're still on Facebook, and gets banned for hate speech or something, they should be on the no-fly list. Because by broadening the definition of terrorism like this into having, political disagreements, having the wrong political ideas, well, then if you express yourself publicly, if you express your political beliefs and they are the wrong political beliefs, you will be labeled a terrorist and therefore put on the no-fly list. So I don't think that the no-fly, no-buy push will come immediately, because that'll be too obvious. If they're saying, hey, we need to put all Trump supporters on the no-fly list, and also we need no-fly, no-buy, it'll be very clear that what they're just trying to do is take away the right to bear arms from anyone right of center. What I think is probably more likely is if they continue down this path and they keep putting more and more people on the no-fly list, they will, once they've built up a big list of people, then they'll pass no-fly, no-buy. And so then overnight, you'll have a large contingent of people who are deprived of their Second Amendment right. Considering how much talk there's been about the no-fly list this week, I would say that this is now even more likely than the Democrats pushing for a ban of online ammo and gun sales, because no-fly, no-buy it's an even smaller step. I mean, it's something that they might not even need to pass on its own. It's something that they could just maybe throw in to another tyrannical Patriot Act 2.0 type of bill. I could very easily see an expansion of the sorts of people who are supposed to be on the no-fly list, and as well as no-fly, no-buy, all being a part of a broader, domestic terrorism type of bill. And so this just, again, is a good opportunity or a good reason to reiterate my point that anyone who does have dissenting opinions really should keep their head down for a little while now. I should too, frankly. but I can't resist. I'm in the habit of doing this every day. So if I get my rights taken away, then I guess I'll be a canary in the coal mine. But there will be a lot of people who get cracked down upon before I do, I think. I talked about yesterday that Dick Durbin is trying to pass a law, one of the many laws that are being proposed now, to criminalize Trump rallies. Say that Trump rallies in and of themselves are acts of domestic terror. And corporate America, even though the law hasn't even gotten out of committee yet, corporate America is going along with this. Airbnb is banning people from booking rooms or houses, to stay in for the purposes of going to Trump rallies. GoFundMe is banning people from raising money to travel for Trump rallies. GoDaddy has just shut down AR-15.com. Again, something that should have been seen. If you're anyone in the gun community, you need to make sure you're insulated from anything like this. I'm surprised that the gun websites weren't shut down before. The fact that AR-15.com, such a massive forum, was still hosted by somebody like GoDaddy is, that's just naive. Everyone who's in the online gun world, whether it's classic firearms, Buds, SG Ammo, Lucky Gunner, or any of the places that are more social in orientation, like AR-15.com, they need to understand that corporate America has been coming after them for a long time. So, they were the first ones who the banks went after, essentially domestic financial sanctions, the kinds of things that the U.S. Treasury does to people who work in foreign governments that they don't like what they do to Russian oligarchs and Venezuelan oligarchs. That's what the banks and the financial system is going to do to political dissidents in this country. And every event that's going to happen is going to be a further justification for that. There's going to be a new wave of censorship and suppression and blacklisting that happens with every event like this. And if Whitney Webb, who's someone I have great respect for, is right, we can expect a lot more events like what happened on January the 6th, and certainly more extreme events, since it's pretty easy to do something more extreme than what happened on January 6th. It was not it's not the biggest terrorist raid that I've ever seen, or terrorist attack. It was pretty mild if you're looking at it through that lens. And so January 20th is the obvious date that pops up in the mind if you're thinking about, well, when could something like this occur? The FBI is floating these, I wouldn't even call them trial balloons. They're planting stories in the media saying about how they're monitoring, there's going to be, violent unrest on January the 20th. Now all of a sudden they can see it coming, even though they didn't see it on January 6th. Supposedly they had no idea that was coming. But no, we know on January 20th there's stuff coming, and there's being circulated this copy of a flyer that says, armed protest in the Capitol. All patriots, show up. And it's like, how dumb do you think people are? Obviously, no one would make that poster. It says armed, protest, because you can't be armed in D.C. You'll get arrested no matter what. So, the poster in and of itself is probably a crime of some sort. So, to me, that's obvious FBI provocation. But with that said, that doesn't mean that nothing is going to happen. Something very likely may happen, and it may very well be worse than January the 6th. Because no matter how much the media cries and how much the Hill staffers and the congressmen, cry about what happened to them on January 6th and how much they feel united by it, that did not unite the whole country behind a common enemy. Far from it. It divided the country. It's far from a new Pearl Harbor kind of event. You can't build, a coalition which is necessary for the broad sweeping changes and erosions of civil liberties that they're looking for, based off of what happened then. And so I think what they would be hoping for in this case is more and more extreme events, maybe something that is closer to a Pearl Harbor or a 9/11 that they can use to do this. But none of these events, I think, will have that kind of an effect. Because the thing is, when you had Pearl Harbor and 9/11, those were blamed on foreigners. Those were blamed on an external enemy, and that united all Americans, because all Americans could rally behind the flag and say, hey, we love the flag so much that we don't care if we're losing civil liberties. We don't care if we lock up all the Japanese people, or people with Japanese names, up in concentration camps. We don't care if the government listens to all of our phone calls and reads our emails, because it's all in pursuit of fighting the common enemy. But if the common enemy becomes right of center America, well then obviously you're not going to unite the right and the left against that enemy. You're only going to unite, I guess, the left and the center against the right. And so I don't see how this works out in the way that the establishment would want it to at this point. But then again, that's why Whitney Webb, I think, she is suggesting that in that case, what they'll try and do is tie whoever the perpetrators are of a future attack to some foreign government, Russia, China, Iran, and she's leaning towards Iran, although it's hard how to try and tie, at least right now for us to think, how would they tie a right-wing attack to Iran, blame it on Iran, because, right-wingers are the most anti-Iran people in America. But then again, before 2016, you could have said the same thing about the right and Russia. I mean, if you remember, it was a big outrage when Obama was president back in 2012, that hot mic moment. People thought that Obama was Putin's puppet, because he said to Dmitry Medvedev, I'll have more flexibility after the election. And Dmitry said, I will transmute that to Vladimir. And yet, since 2016, the right has somehow become, in the eyes of the American media, synonymous, or at the very least in cahoots with Russia. So I guess they could do the same thing with Iran. But again, when the media did that after 2016, what did it do? Did it unite the whole country against Trump supporters and Russia? No. What it did was it made a lot more people on the right sort of open to the idea of being friendly with Russia, because the media was tying them to them, and they're like, well, I guess Russia's not all that bad if CNN hates them. And so I guess maybe it's possible that they could do that with Iran. But again, still will not have the desired effect, will not unite the country to such an extent that they will be able to gain real power, like they did after, Pearl Harbor or 9/11. That kind of unity, and it's a bad thing to me. I don't think that it's good when the country is unified in that way. I don't think that that's possible, thankfully. Even if the laws are able to be passed at the federal level, you will have lower levels of government, more localized levels of government, state and county level governments nullifying those laws. So that's where we're at for now. Keep all this in mind and watch for whatever it is that's going to happen, and be ready when that happens. And I don't mean, don't read anything into that. I just mean be ready mentally, because they're going to take something and twist it. There's going to be some crisis that they're going to try and exploit, more of a crisis than what we just saw. Oh, and I think this goes without saying, but just to clarify, don't get baited by the FBI into doing anything stupid on January the 20th. The establishment clearly wants something bad to happen on that date. They want their 9/11, and nobody who has two brain cells to rub together should help them out in that. I think that's about all I have to say for today. If you gained anything of value out of this video, I'd appreciate you clicking that like button and sharing this video. And if you haven't already, please just subscribe, because I do upload every day and I'd hate to have you miss one. So I'll see you folks back here tomorrow.